Once upon a time, in a small, peaceful town nestled between rolling hills and whispering forests, lived the Brightmore family. They were a family of five: the curious and imaginative Ellie, who was 9, her slightly mischievous younger brother, Max, who was 7, their cheerful baby sister, Rosie, and their loving parents, Clara and Peter. One fine summer morning, Clara announced that the family was going on a special train journey through the scenic countryside. The children were thrilled. For Ellie and Max, the idea of boarding a train felt like stepping into a storybook, a portal to adventure. The family arrived at the charming old train station, where a steam engine named the Starliner Express stood waiting, huffing and puffing like a gentle giant. The train gleamed under the golden sunlight, its carriages painted deep green with golden accents. As they boarded, Ellie noticed an older man with kind eyes sitting near the platform. He was dressed in a blue conductor's uniform and seemed to watch them with a warm smile. His presence felt comforting, almost magical, as if he were the guardian of countless untold stories. The Brightmores settled into a cozy compartment, complete with plush red seats and large windows that framed the countryside like a moving painting. As the train began to chug forward, Ellie and Max pressed their faces to the glass, marveling at the fields of sunflowers, grazing cows, and sparkling rivers that zipped by. Rosie gurgled happily in Clara's arms, while Peter pulled out a map, showing Ellie and Max the route they'd take. "Look here," he explained, pointing to a section of the map. "The train will pass through a mountain tunnel, over a high bridge, and into a forest before reaching the final stop, a hidden lake." Ellie's eyes widened. A mountain tunnel? A high bridge? A hidden lake? It sounded like the adventure of a lifetime. Just as the train wound its way through a meadow filled with wildflowers, it suddenly screeched to a halt. The passengers looked around, confused. Outside, the conductor could be seen speaking with the train driver. Ellie, filled with curiosity, turned to Max. "Do you think it's a dragon?" she whispered, her imagination racing. But soon, the conductor's voice boomed over the intercom, explaining that a fallen tree had blocked the tracks ahead. The passengers would need to wait while the crew cleared the way. Ellie and Max, eager to stretch their legs, convinced their parents to step outside for a little exploration. The meadow was alive with the hum of bees and the rustle of grass in the breeze. Rosie clapped her tiny hands as butterflies danced around her. Nearby, the family noticed an older woman sitting by herself on a picnic blanket, holding a little wooden birdhouse. Ellie, always curious, asked her mother if they could go and say hello. Clara smiled and nodded. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Maple, a retired school teacher who loved building birdhouses in her spare time. She told Ellie and Max about how birds always found their way home, no matter how far they flew. Her words seemed to settle in Ellie's heart like a warm hug. Before long, the tracks were cleared, and the passengers returned to their seats. As the train began to move again, the Brightmores noticed that the scenery was changing. The hills grew steeper, and soon the train entered the mountain tunnel. Inside the tunnel, everything was dark and echoing, and for a moment, the only sound was the rhythmic chugging of the train. Ellie held Max's hand, and even though it was a little scary, it also felt exciting, like they were explorers venturing into the unknown. When the train emerged from the tunnel, it crossed a tall bridge that spanned a deep valley. Below, a sparkling river wound its way through the landscape, and the children gasped at the sight. "It's like a bridge to the clouds," thought Ellie. The train then entered a dense forest where sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Suddenly, the train slowed again. Not because of a fallen tree this time, but because a family of deer was crossing the tracks. The passengers leaned out of their windows, watching in awe as the graceful creatures disappeared into the trees. "Sometimes," thought Peter, "life asks us to pause and admire the beauty around us." Finally, the train arrived at its destination, a secluded lake surrounded by tall pine trees. The water was so clear that it mirrored the sky. The Brightmores, along with the other passengers, stepped off the train to explore. The family found a perfect spot by the water's edge, where they unpacked their picnic. Ellie and Max skipped stones across the lake, while Rosie toddled after a curious squirrel. Clara and Peter watched their children, feeling grateful for this moment of peace and togetherness. As the afternoon wore on, the conductor appeared by the lake, handing out small silver whistles to the children. "A gift to remember the journey," he explained. Ellie held hers tightly, feeling that the day had been a little more magical because of him. On the way back, the Brightmores reflected on the day's adventures. Ellie thought about Mrs. Maple and her birdhouses, the deer in the forest, and the kind conductor. She realized that adventures weren't just about seeing new places. They were about noticing the little moments that made life special. The train adventure taught Ellie and Max something important. Life is like a journey on a train. Sometimes it speeds forward and sometimes it pauses unexpectedly. But every stop, every moment, has something to teach us, if we're willing to look closely. As the train pulled back into the station, the Brightmores stepped off, their hearts full of memories and their minds full of dreams. They waved goodbye to the conductor, who tipped his hat with a knowing smile. Did you enjoy this adventure? Life is full of magical moments waiting to be discovered. Don't forget to explore, dream, and cherish the journey. And before you go, remember to like this story and subscribe to our channel for more exciting adventures. Let's travel together to new worlds, one story at a time.